Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Nancy Prager-Camel, the chairwoman of the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents in the United States. On behalf of our board of directors and the community of foreign correspondents that we serve, I extend a warm welcome to all of you at our annual Foreign Press Awards ceremony. Thank you for joining us in recognizing and supporting the invaluable work of foreign correspondents as they navigate the challenges of reporting and contributing a more informed and interconnected global community. This gathering takes place every year and aims to honor the recipients of the annual Scholarship and Professional Excellence Awards and to celebrate the honorary Foreign Press Awardee of the Year and to unite our voices in support of the community of foreign correspondents. As in all past years, the AFPC-USA has supported the work of US-based foreign correspondents who have originated from countries all over the world, with past honorees coming from Germany, China, Nigeria, France, Venezuela, South Korea, Zimbabwe, Egypt, Kenya, Peru, Switzerland, Canada, Philippines, Sweden, New Zealand, Argentina, Mexico, India, Luxembourg, Ghana, Russia, Brazil, and Lebanon. Your presence here today is appreciated as we come together to acknowledge the significant contributions of foreign correspondents. Through the dedication of the journalist, a vital role is played in providing timely, fact-based information to their audiences and in shaping the global perception of the United States, also in offering unique international perspective to audiences in their home countries. In today's world, we are inundated with propaganda, where anyone can claim the role of or disseminate unverified information. Foreign correspondents serve as journalists' gatekeepers. The real-time reporting reminds us daily that their existence is essential in keeping our world informed without the filters of propaganda or the distortion of reality caused by misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. The AFPC-USA, as the leading independent organization that serves foreign correspondents in the United States, has dedicated its purposes to, 1, providing monetary support to foreign journalists who pursue a master's program in the U.S. and those correspondents who are distinguished due to their excellence of their reporting. Number 2, we offer foreign correspondents daily educational resources on how to pursue excellence in journalism and advance their skills in the various fields of reporting. 3, we develop foreign correspondents' weekly and monthly educational programs that are available in person as well as virtually, and we connect them with experts and resources to achieve the information that is valuable to the work that they do as foreign correspondents in the United States. Reporting daily on press freedom is another one of our initiatives, and that puts the work of foreign correspondents under multiple forms of risk and threat. This year, the AFPC-USA provided for the first time a grant of $10,000 to a group of Mexican correspondents in recognition of their courageous work in Mexico, the deadliest country in the world for journalism until the present, with these horrific numbers coming out of the Middle East. The diversity of our programs and audience also reflects the diversity of our partners and supporters from the private sector who are here tonight with us and to whom I extend a heartfelt thanks for all the support and standing by our community to help us with the work as strong allies in this impactful role that we try to play. Please allow me tonight to say a most sincere thank you to Bayer, the Knight Foundation, Toyota, Volkswagen, Procter & Gamble, Microsoft, General Motors, Delta Airline, Pfizer, Lieber Group, the Heinrich Foundation, NASDAQ, S&P Global, and Julia and Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory. I want to express our appreciation to CNN, ABC News, CBS News, and NBC Universal. A personal thank you for the efforts and the commitments as supporters and board members to our beloved Mitzi Perdue, whose generosity has allowed us to be here tonight. and also to Julia Hart, whose support and passion will enable the AFPC-USA to expand and grow. We thank you most sincerely. With this welcome, I would like to invite on stage Cecil McCarthy, our Executive Board member, an award-winning international business journalist and winning international award, said that one, okay, and distinguished lecturer and director of the journalist program at Hunter College. She is the founder of newsliteracymatters.com, an online platform dedicated to teaching people how to find fact-based, credible information in this digital age. She has been teaching news literacy and multimedia, reporting and writing for nearly 20 years at Hunter College, NYU, and Emory University. And this is all following her very stellar career in broadcast journalism. It is with great pleasure that I turn the program over to our Mistress of Ceremony, Cecil McCarthy.
Thank you so much, Nancy. And dear colleagues, partners, and supporters, it's so great to see you here today. Tonight we gather not just in celebration of the incredible work being done by journalists, many of whom are here tonight in our audience, but also with a shared concern for those who are making extraordinary sacrifices. Consider Evan Gershkovich, a Wall Street Journal reporter wrongfully detained by Russia a staggering 264 days tonight. A stark reminder of the personal risk journalists take in the pursuit of truth. Sadly, Evan is not alone. This year, 400 journalists have been incarcerated for simply reporting timely and factual information to the public. This year is also on track to be one of the most deadly for reporters. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, at least 63 journalists have been killed since Hamas launched an unprecedented attack on Israel on October 7th. As of today, 4 Israeli, 3 Lebanese, and 56 Palestinian journalists have been killed, making it the deadliest conflict for reporters in 30 years. At least 15 journalists have also been killed while reporting on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I urge you to read my colleague Bob Rowley's insightful piece highlighted here in the annual Press Awards booklet that sheds light on the rising death toll for journalists globally and the efforts that the AFPC is using to raise awareness and explore innovative ways to ensure reporters' safety. And then if you turn the page, you can also read mine. But as this death toll for journalists grows, so do threats to free speech. Press freedom is under attack, and not just in the usual countries known for media censorship. The playbook is all too familiar. People in power first discredit journalists, call their fact-based information fake news. Then they spread disinformation and propaganda through complicit media outlets and social media platforms. And it works, polarizing, sometimes even radicalizing individuals. And now there is yet another front in this war on information with the launch of ChatGPT just a year ago, all these other AI tools. If you think it's hard to find fact-based information now, just wait. Experts say AI-generated content could soon account for 99% of all information on the internet. Why? Because generative AI recycles information that's already online. That means disinformation, rumors, propaganda, and conspiracy theories are being continuously repeated and reinvented, creating a vicious cycle of fake news. Some experts are calling it an information apocalypse. Once again, journalists find themselves at the forefront of this battle, navigating unprecedented challenges. The news industry leaders here tonight and our next generation of journalists are already dealing with this new reality. And we, the public, must support them. We must value and actively defend a free press and remind leaders worldwide that silencing journalists is unacceptable. I am so honored to be part of the AFPC-USA, an organization that champions the mission, showcasing the remarkable achievements of our Foreign Press Award recipients, and investing in future newsroom leaders through our scholarships. We certainly couldn't do it with all of our AFPC leadership team and members. Thank you all for being here, who give their time so generously. And of course, our gratitude extends to all our partners and you, our esteemed audience, for your generous contributions and support. Thank you. All right, so now for the good stuff, let's get started. And first up, I would like to welcome on stage someone who is a committed supporter of the AFPC-USA, an executive board member who is, most importantly, an activist and philanthropist who has dedicated her work to impacting the lives of others. I'm talking about Mitzi Perdue, who in the last 2 years has devoted her time, energy, and resources as a correspondent in Ukraine, reporting on the atrocities of the Russian invasion and helping Ukrainian people with their landmine clearing program. It is also thanks to Mitzi that our award ceremony is in this beautiful venue tonight. So please join me in welcoming Mitzi on stage.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and what an honor to be here. I want to welcome you with a quote from 504 years ago. It's from Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci said that he who does not oppose evil is doing the same thing as commanding evil. Now, what does that have to do with us as journalists? Well, we have the most fortunate position in the world because we are able to have a platform for opposing evil. We are the ones who can tell the stories, find the voices of the people that need to have their voices heard. And what that means for all of us is that we can be part of opposing evil and for proof that it's important. And I'm thinking now of some of the statistics we've heard about how journalists are under attack. When we think of the journalists under attack, think back in a moment for history, probably a few thousand years, that every autocrat, despot, dictator, oppressor, tyrant, what do they do? What do they really want to do? They want to shut up a free press, because as it was also said earlier, a free press means freedom. Freedom doesn't exist without the free press. And we all have the extreme honor of doing what Da Vinci said 500 years ago, which is oppose evil so that we're not commanding evil. I'm thinking of my own career as a journalist and how privileged I feel, but I'm kind of feeling it I hope on behalf of everybody else. In my case, if I had a chance to come back 100 different times to this life, and I could choose any career I wanted, I'm 82 right now, and I can look back on my life. Oh, thank you, guys. But if I could come back 100 times over and over again, without exception, I would always choose this career. I love it. I love the people that I interact with. I love the impact that we can have. I love that we're a force for democracy and good and that we can oppose evil. And now it is my huge privilege to introduce Sarah Ashton. Are you here, Sarah? Sarah, would you come forward? And also Major Ilya Borshko. Would you both come up, please? Sarah has done something that I admire to the outer limits, which is Sarah went to Ukraine as a war correspondent, but she did even more. Forgive me, I've just misgendered you. No, bad Mitzi. Sarah did something extraordinary. She joined the Ukrainian armed forces. I figure that in my job, I've metaphorically spilled ink. You're prepared in your work to spill blood. I invite you to say a few words and then to introduce Ilya.
It's great to be here. My name is Sergeant Sarah Ashton. I'm with the Armed Forces of Ukraine. 1 year ago, I was in this room with many of you, actually, different room, same awards, and I had been sent back over to the United States to discuss some of my service. Here we are a year later, and I have spilled blood. And with Mitzi last week at the Capitol, along with my commander, Major Boschko, we were able to make rounds not asking for the $61 billion, which is very necessary, but something in a lot of ways is more important. We spoke to policymakers about the need to not just win the victory today, but to continue to win in the future. And that meant ensuring free press, free speech, and democracy, even during a time of questions regarding martial law and some very difficult moments at the front lines. And when our commanders allowed us to come over to discuss it, we absolutely understood that it was a mission to come see you here as well. Because ultimately, although we serve at the front, foreign correspondents are every bit the heroes that soldiers are, and we cannot be able to bask in the victory over the Russian invaders or over autocracy if we're unable to guarantee freedom. And freedom begins with the journalists in this room, and free speech and free press today and always, even during martial law. Major Boschko?
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us. I spent like half a year before full scale on the front line in Donetsk region, working with mostly foreign correspondents. That's how I know what you want, what you need, what is more important and vital in this case. And of course, it was much more easier than partly it can be described as a trench war. And right now it's completely different story. And we spent together like 8 months in Kharkiv and Kharkiv region, before and after first counteroffensive. And I may say, right now, we found out, surprise, surprise, that free press is a necessity. It's not like we try to find a compromise. It's not like we try to understand you or tolerate even you. We found out this is the only way how we will show the truth. Thank you very much.
And I apologize to Thanos in advance. He said 3 minutes, but I will say this. There's one Hey, Thanos, I love you back there, so thank you for the extra 30 seconds. People talk about war fatigue. However, the public gets their information from you. We understand that if the story is there and you have access to the story, there will be no fatigue. You will always be welcome in Ukraine to do your job, and because of that, we know the world will never forget us. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you. And Mitzi, you're an inspiration to all of us. Thank you all for your important work. Next up, we have Julia Hart, a strong advocate of press freedom, a philanthropist, and a believer in the mission of the AFPC as a member of the board of directors. She is a storyteller and wrote a book called Brazen about her decision to leave the Orthodox Jewish community 11 years ago. She's also starred and produced in the Netflix series My Unorthodox Life. She shared her story publicly and so honestly for a reason. Because she knows the power of a story. Julia has also witnessed the consequences of the war in Ukraine and went there to help share their stories. She's leaving for Israel tomorrow to do the same. Please join me in welcoming Julia Hart.
I have to say I'm a bit embarrassed to be speaking at such an august event with people who have literally risk their lives day in and day out to tell the truth. So I apologize for being here. Buddha says, 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, the truth. We as human beings, we tend to give value to the stories that are constantly disseminated. The more you read about something, the more that you assume it has meaning, purpose, and importance. And the problem is, as I think everyone in this room knows, and I've done some diligence on this, it is somewhere between 62 and 71% of the global population that is currently today receiving their information from social media. We need to pause on that for a moment. You know, Walter Lippmann once said, there can be no higher law in journalism than to tell the truth and shame the devil. Telling the truth is very unpopular, very often. And in fact, what does Winston Churchill famously say, right? A lie goes halfway around the world before truth has time to put its pants on. It's very difficult to distinguish between a lie and the truth. And what the Russians have done in Ukraine so well and what Hamas is doing so well is when you tell a lie over and over and over again, guess what it begins to sound like? It begins to sound like the truth. That's what we're facing. Millennials, young people today who have no historic perspective, most of whom can't find some of the places we're speaking about on the map. They are making decisions, and they are the people who will be running the world 20 years from now. And they are being fed a constant stream of propaganda, misinformation. I had the honor of going with Mitzi to Ukraine. I've actually been to Ukraine. It's a strange world we live in when a reality star can say, I've been into two world war zones in the past year, and I'm going into my third war zone tomorrow. I'm actually going to the front lines. I'm going to Gaza. I'm going to be speaking to people on both sides of the divide who have the same message to tell. And that's why I think what every person here does is so incredibly important. Words matter. You call Hamas a terrorist organization, it's one word. Or you call them freedom fighters, all right, 2 words, 5. It changes everything. Words have power. Stories unite or divide. Look how far we've come as a humanity, right? AI that we just spoke about. We have hotels on the moon, and yet look at us. We are more divided. We are angry. There is just so much hatred and this constant repetition of old prejudices that you would think at this point of humanity we would have graduated from that, and yet we haven't. But we cannot give up. We cannot stop disseminating truth. We cannot stop putting ourselves in harm's way to share the stories with the world that will unite rather than divide. I know, and I believe in every fiber of my being, that what unites us is greater than what divides us. So I ask all of you, don't stop. So many journalists are killed or threatened. So many of you get backlash when you speak the truth. What you are doing is more important today than it has ever been. And I want to end with Martin Luther King Jr. He once said, I believed that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why right, temporarily defeated, will overcome and be stronger than evil triumphant. You are the arbiters of truth and right. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. Thank you so much. And wish me luck in Israel.
Good luck, Julia, and we can't wait to hear the stories that you're going to tell from Gaza. Well, all foreign correspondents who come to the U.S. to work and report for global networks from their home countries have a point of contact not only us, the AFPC, but also the foreign press centers that the State Department has dedicated for many decades to help foreign correspondents by providing them direct access to American information sources. They also help foreign correspondents engage with U.S. policy, society, culture, and values. From its inception, the AFPC has committed to working closely with the foreign press centers, personnel, officers, and acknowledging the crucial role that they play in advancing the work of our foreign colleagues here in America. And it's such an honor tonight to have Ryan Roberts, the director of the Foreign Press Centers in Washington, D.C. and New York City, here with us. Please join me in welcoming Ryan Roberts.
Good evening, everyone. And I, too, promised Thanos that I would only speak for 4 minutes. But I think I'll try to bring it down to 2 minutes, and I'll cede some of my time to some of the better speakers. Thank you so much for being here, and it's wonderful for us to be able to be part of this evening tonight and see so many old friends from Washington. That's where I'm based, and also some new friends. I hope we get a chance to connect this evening as well. I want to express my deep appreciation to the organizers for inviting us to be part of this evening. And I also want to acknowledge and express gratitude to all of the foreign correspondents who risk their lives and do such important work each day. Their daily contributions are so key to promoting global transparency and to strengthening democracy. And if any of you are foreign correspondents based either in New York or Washington, and you are not a member of the Foreign Press Center and you do not hold our credential, please see me after this. We have to talk. Foreign journalists like you also play a vital role in ensuring that people across the globe understand the intricacies of the United States, our people, our policies, our society, our values, and our culture. In this regard, you are perfectly placed to bridge understanding by translating the decisions and policies and events unfolding here in the United States to your respective home countries. I also know that many of you have colleagues around the world whose professional responsibilities expose them to substantial risks. And I'm sure that each of us knows someone, and maybe some in this room, who have faced harassment, detention, or perhaps even more severe challenges. Those who seek to oppress freedom, and especially freedom of the press, often do so because of the profound importance, the equalizing influence, and the empowering nature of your work. So, congratulations to all of those who are being honored today, and congratulations to all of you for upholding these vital principles. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Now, directly from Washington, D.C. here tonight, we also have the honor to host the president of the National Press Club and Axios managing editor, our colleague Eileen O'Reilly. Eileen is not only an extraordinary journalist and strong advocate for press freedom, she's also a firm believer in the importance of our work to empower foreign correspondents in the U.S. and to give them access to the tools, training programs, and resources to serve an international audience. Please join me in welcoming Eileen.
Thank you for that kind introduction, and a huge thank you to Thanos and the committee for inviting me here tonight. As she said, my name is Eileen O'Reilly. I am the president of the National Press Club and the managing editor of Standards and Training for Axios. We're known for smart brevity. I know how dangerous it is to get between journalists and the bar, so I will keep this very brief. It is thrilling for me to speak at the AFPC-USA, as I myself was a foreign correspondent early in my career, reporting from Tokyo and Singapore, as well as Switzerland, to an audience at home. There certainly are unique challenges of trying to cover a nation you were not born in or lived in for a long period of time, isn't there? At the time when I was a foreign correspondent, There was a relentless feeling of optimism about the global economy and world politics, and the world seemed to become a little bit safer for journalists in many places. I miss those days. Things have certainly changed. It is my privilege to speak to you tonight about press freedom today and the incredible challenges we face, as many already have. Press freedom is enshrined in the U.S. Constitution and in many other countries' governing laws. We have seen an erosion everywhere. I don't have to tell this crowd how important press freedom is as a safeguard for democracy and a cornerstone for a vibrant and informed society. You live this each day. In an age where information flows faster than ever, it is critical that people have a reliable source of news that can provide them with accurate, unbiased, and timely information. Press freedom is also vital for the protection of human rights. Journalists often put their lives on the line to expose abuses, to shine a light on injustice, and to hold oppressors accountable. In doing so, these brave people give voice to the voiceless, advocate for the marginalized, and contribute to the global fight for justice and equality. Moreover, press freedom is a cornerstone of economic development. A thriving media industry creates jobs, fosters innovation, and contributes to a robust information economy. Sadly, despite its paramount importance, press freedom is not guaranteed. Journalists around the world face grave threats to their safety and freedom every day. They are subjected to harassment, imprisonment, and violence simply for doing their jobs. In some countries, media outlets are controlled or censored by the government or powerful interests, limiting their ability to report independently. In others, like this one, financial pressures and economic challenges undermine independent journalism. We must be vigilant in defending press freedom at home and advocating for it abroad. I'm proud of the work of the National Press Club and its nonprofit arm, the National Press Club Journalism Institute, does. One of the things we focus on is working on the release of American journalists who've been unjustly detained overseas. We continue to work very hard to get the release of 3 American journalists held overseas: Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, who was arrested doing his job in Russia 254 days ago; Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty editor Elsu Kermasheva has also been taken in Russia. And we continue to seek the release of Austin Tice, the American journalist being held in Syria for more than 11 years. A free press is not an enemy of the state. It is a vital partner in building a just and prosperous society. It is the lifeblood of democracy, the guardian of human rights, the driver of economic growth, and the protector of the public's right to know. I'm proud to be here with the organization that has press freedom as its core value and does all it can to ensure journalists everywhere can perform their vital role without fear or intimidation. And I thank each and every one of you here tonight for doing your very important job every single day. You're an inspiration, and I thank you.
And thank you, Eileen, for everything you do. Another special guest tonight who traveled from Washington, D.C. to be here is our colleague, Selena Wang, who is well known for her work at ABC News and for her work at CNN's Beijing Bureau as the network's sole correspondent in China. We're so grateful to ABC News for its support, and we welcome Selena Wang to share her message on behalf of ABC News. Please join me in welcoming Selena.
Thank you for that kind introduction. As you just said, I'm Selena Wang. I'm currently the senior White House correspondent for ABC News, and I'm honored to be here on behalf of the organization. Congratulations to all the awardees here and to all the journalists here. I have remarkable appreciation and awe for what you do. What you do bridges the gap between languages, customs, societal norms, serving as the eyes and ears of places that your viewers and readers will likely never go to. The stories that you choose to tell, the analysis, the perspective you bring, that plays a critical role in shaping the narrative of whether it's this country that you're reporting in, whatever beat you're covering, shaping that narrative for the rest of the world. So I actually only recently moved to Washington, D.C. after spending the last 5 years abroad across Asia, reporting for Bloomberg News, most recently CNN, in China, Japan, and Hong Kong. And my time overseas has given me newfound appreciation for my birth home, where I grew up, which is that what we've been talking about throughout this evening is that we have freedom of the press here. There's the duty, the expectation of journalists to tell the truth, to hold our leaders accountable, and critically, people here have access to free and uncensored information. So when I was reporting in China, every story required many layers of obstacles. I had to ask myself many questions, our team many questions, our very small and scrappy team. How do we protect our sources? How do I communicate with them in a safe way? How do I protect my colleagues, myself? How do we get to the truth and bottom of the story when sometimes we're being followed and surveilled? And then we have to think about what happens after we publish that story. What kind of backlash will we face? What kind of trolling, harassment am I going to find online, on my Twitter feed, on TikTok? And how could this impact my visa, my status working as a reporter in that country? Now, what motivated me to keep going and what motivates many journalists is the knowledge that in some cases, if we do not choose to share that story, then perhaps no one will. And this has been touched on earlier in the night. And when you are living in a country far away from home, there are many layers of work beyond the job, just immersing yourself in a new culture, in an unfamiliar environment. But sometimes being an outsider has its advantages too. You will see things from a different perspective. You'll find something unique in the daily norms. As journalists, we are sometimes living the very story we're telling. So during the pandemic, I went through so many different government-mandated quarantines throughout Asia that I lost count. 21 days in a facility here, 10 days in a facility there, 2 weeks in another place. And by far the harshest quarantines I faced were in China. But I knew that what I was experiencing was only a small slice of what the broader country was going through. And every challenge I went through navigating China's zero COVID policy was an opportunity for me to not only document firsthand what life was like in China for the rest of the world, but to think about ways that I could be talking to my sources and digging for information. As journalists, we are not only having a front row to history, but oftentimes we're actually living it, and what we experience can inform and inspire our storytelling. Now, this industry is not easy. Our work is 24/7. The world is saturated with information. Yet the truth can feel elusive. But the work that we as journalists do, the aim is to cut through that fog of endless content and guiding people through the complexities of our world. So congratulations to the awardees. I look forward to meeting everybody here tonight. I look forward to continuing to read and watch everybody's work. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Selena, for your work and for guiding us through the complexities of our world. Next up, we have Amanda Ellis. She is a former UN ambassador who currently serves as the executive director for the Global Institute of Sustainability and Innovation and a senior director for the Julie Ann Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory at Arizona State University. We're so proud and honored to have the support of the Julie Ann Wrigley Global Futures Lab, particularly for foreign correspondents who cover climate change and environmental reporting. Please join me in welcoming Amanda.
Good evening. Thank you. Enga mana, enga reo, era enga rangatiratanga. I have just greeted you in Māori, the indigenous language of Aotearoa, New Zealand, my birth island. And I have greeted you as rangatira, as chiefs, as leaders. Thank you to the awardees and to all the journalists here tonight for the courageous work that you do on behalf of all the rest of us. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So why did I repeat that 3 times? Our tradition is once for the ancestors, second, for those who are present this evening, and third, and perhaps most importantly, for future generations who are really counting on us to make sure that we will have a livable planet. I've just come back from COP28, just flew in last night. It's pretty depressing. So we are even more grateful to the work that those of you who are doing climate journalism are doing. We know that there is increased dis and misinformation, and we know that the stories that you tell and the information that you convey can really help to educate and to make people aware that this is the decisive decade. The stakes could not be higher. And I have a confession to make. When I was ambassador to the UN in 2015 and we were negotiating the Sustainable Development Goals, I did not understand the importance of the climate crisis, how imminent it was, nor of the very important relationship between climate and peace. I served as co-chair on the Security Council for humanitarian access into Syria. And as I learned more and more about the origins of the conflict and began to understand the role that climate played in it, I became very grateful for the education that I received from Julianne Wrigley, who is a pioneering philanthropist and really a very early advocate for the importance of sustainability and of climate education. The Julianne Wrigley Global Futures Lab at ASU is really designed to create just and regenerative global futures, both grounded in Indigenous wisdoms and leveraging high tech. Of course, climate communications are absolutely critical. And I have learned so much from my scientist colleagues, but also from the journalists at our Walter Cronkite School for Journalism and Mass Communication. So thank you all for the pivotal role you play to maintain democracy and a livable planet on a global scale. I wanted to mention very quickly a couple of projects that we are delighted to be partnering with the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents on. And I was given specific instructions by Nancy to say that we will be deepening this collaboration and expanding it starting now. But first of all, the Human Security for All campaign, which is a partnership with the United Nations. We no longer have the luxury of national security. We live on one very small planet, and we as humans are a large presence. So human security is what we all need to focus on, and the work that you all do as journalists is critical to that. Second, with the Interparliamentary Union, 180 member countries, the oldest multilateral organization on the planet, where we are helping to create a wonderful campaign called My Parliament, My Planet, Our Shared Global Future. So please Google that and check it out. And finally, with UNICEF, this was the first time that there was a greening education pavilion at COP28. It was the first time there was a national delegation from UNICEF of youth from my home country, Aotearoa, New Zealand. And those youth voices are so critical. So, in closing, thank you all for the role that you are helping to play to help us emerge from this emergency, and to leave you with a quote from my favorite poet, Amanda Gorman. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. Thank you, courageous journalists, for being our light in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. You are certainly a chief and leader, and we are so excited about our work with the Julianne Wrigley Global Futures Lab in 2024. I am happy to tell you it's now time to present the awards for our 2023 Scholarship and Professional Excellence awardees. Bear has been one of the strongest advocates and supporters of the AFPC scholarships and awards, and we're very grateful for its commitment and partnership. We particularly want to thank Beth Rodan, Senior Vice President and Head of U.S. Communications for Bear, and we have the pleasure this year of thanking her in person. Where's Beth? Okay. Thank you, Beth. And a thank you to Sue Ann Pentecost, the head of Integrated Strategic Communications for Bear, who will be presenting the next award. Sue Ann.
Thank you. On behalf of Bear, all of our employees at Bear across the globe, I congratulate all of the scholarship and award recipients who we honor tonight. Bear is proud to support and sponsor the Association of Foreign Correspondents and the U.S. Foreign Press Award Ceremony. Tonight we are celebrating achievements, and in reading through what these individuals have done, really the exemplary work that you are doing in your field of journalism. We are delighted that you have the opportunity to live here, to study here, to learn here, to ask questions in your chosen field, and that is thanks to the many sponsors like Bear and to the Correspondents, Association of Foreign Correspondents. As a global life sciences leader, Bear reaffirms a long-standing commitment to support freedom of the press and freedom of speech. The future of journalism requires it. It requires delivery of fair, balanced, and accurate reporting. And it's whether it's issues affecting our world, our states, our nation, or the local communities in which journalists are reporting in. Just in the past several weeks, you've heard many examples around what's happening in Israel, Hamas, COP28, as well as the lingering impact that is happening for Ukrainians and Russians, and the impact that is happening on so many people across the world. We see it every day. We see it in our homes. We see it in our workplaces. But for so many of us, we're seeing it on our phones. We're seeing it on our televisions. We're seeing it in a way that's a bit removed from those of you who are in the field and bringing that reporting to us on a daily basis. And we just commend that reporting, because without it, we wouldn't have it. We wouldn't see the stories. We wouldn't hear the perspectives. We wouldn't hear the suffering and the pain that so many are going through right now. For us, journalists are critical to being at the forefront of the most pressing issues, whether it's on topics of food security or sustainability, whether it's health inequities and the disparities that exist for so many people who don't have their story told unless it's journalists like you who are helping to tell it. Although freedom of the press is a cornerstone of our nation's democracy, the reality is that it's under attack now more today than ever. You've already heard some of the statistics that were shared earlier by the Committee to Protect Journalists, and it's devastating to think about the number of journalists who have been killed by just trying to report fair and balanced reporting in the Israeli-Hamas war. Journalists like the Wall Street Reporter, journalist Evan Kursevich, who has been detained so wrongfully for just trying to bring the truth, and so many like him. It's critical that we continue to stand, that Bear stands with other companies from all over the world in continuing to champion fair, balanced, and truth reporting, and all of those of you who are working so tirelessly to do so. As a company whose mission is health for all and hunger for none, our business is science, data, and innovation, and we know firsthand the importance of fair and accurate reporting. So on behalf of Bear, again, I want to express my heartfelt congratulations to today's scholarships and award winners. Even though it seems very dark in where we are in journalism, I believe our future is very bright because of the coverage of each of you. So congratulations on a job well done. So first of all, I'm going to be presenting the scholarship awardee. The first award is going to go to Chloe Nanlin Found. Chloe is, yes. Chloe is a journalist based in the Washington, D.C. area. She's covering U.S. foreign policy toward East Asia, especially on China. She started her journalism career in Hong Kong and moved to Beijing to cover China at CNN and Reuters. During Chloe's time in mainland China, she reported from the field on China's annual parliament meetings, foreign policy, and U.S.-China relations. She wrote in depth about China's social issues, such as low birth rate and ethnic minority policies. At Reuters, Chloe led production of many multimedia packages to cover the COVID-19 outbreak in China. She's currently finishing her master's degree in Asian Studies at Georgetown University. So congratulations again, Chloe. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would now like to present the Professional Excellence Awardee, and that award is going to Nicola Viola Vince. So I had the opportunity to speak with Nicola before the event, and she is doing some fabulous work. She's an award-winning binationalist journalist from Germany and Switzerland, and she has extensive experience working as a news producer. She received her bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism and Hispanic studies from Pepperdine University, as well as her MS from USC's Annenberg School of Communication. Nicola previously worked at Spectrum News 13 in Orlando and is now at ZDF German TV in Washington, D.C. Nicola's coverage spans North America to the southernmost tip of Panama, including coverage from the White House, State Department, Capitol, and Pentagon. Her ability to connect with protagonists has opened the doors to obtaining interviews with some of America's most high-ranking officials. Please join me again in welcoming or congratulating Nicola on this award. Congratulations. Thank you. And the final award I will get to present is also a Professional Excellence Awardee, and that is going to Ankita M. Kumar. Ankita is an award-winning Indian journalist based in the San Francisco Bay Area. She has previously worked for Politico, Deutsche Welle, and The Economist Group. Ankita is the recipient of several fellowships to support her reporting in India. In 2023, Ankita directed a documentary, Far From Home, set to premiere at the Amdak Film Festival next year. The documentary is funded by the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting and the American Institute of Afghanistan Studies. Her articles have been published in several Indian and international publications, such as The Wire, Outlook, Deutsche Welle, and the San Francisco Chronicle. Ankita holds master's degrees from Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism and the London School of Economics, as well as a bachelor's degree from Lady Shri Ram College, the University of Delhi. Please join me in congratulating our professional award winner, Ankita. Thank you. Congratulations again.
Thank you, Suanna. Congratulations, Ankita, Nicola, and Chloe. Toyota is also one of our partners whose support all these years have allowed the AFPC to expand its impactful work serving our community of foreign correspondents. Edward Lewis, the Director of Public Policy Communications for Toyota Motor North America, is here with us tonight from Washington, D.C. Please join me in welcoming Edward to present the next awards.
Thank you, Cecil. It's great to be in a room filled with young, seasoned, fearless journalists. I can't thank you enough for doing what you do and for being a supporter of free press. I have to confess, one of the things that happened to me last year when I was at the event, not here, I was wearing a blue suit that was brand new. I had owned it for 2 hours. That's because I left my suit at home. So, to make a long, long story short, thanks to Google Maps, a very nice concierge, a wonderful saleswoman named Minnie, a patient Uber driver, and a good steam iron, I made it on time. So, thank you, thank you. I'm not as frazzled this year, but I am still it's great to be here, with you. So, when they say, I should have said, when it takes a village to raise a child, I had a village. So it applies to adults too. So we know that recipients of tonight's awards and scholarships have demonstrated exceptional drive, integrity, and a deep allegiance to the principles of journalism. They have pursued stories on the major issues of the day, from immigration and human rights to social justice and the environment, all while embracing the values of accuracy, transparency, and unbiased reporting. Values that are vital in today's era of information overload and the uncharted space of AI in everything we write. As we celebrate tonight's journalists and their future, let us also acknowledge the power of the press to inspire change. Their words remind us of the power of words, as someone else mentioned, either written or spoken. And as journalists, I urge you to take stock of that power. The words you choose to inform can also challenge or preserve the status quo. They can test conventional wisdom about our environment, religion, politics, and the difference between right and wrong. We know that powerful words are among the most potent forces we have to alter the course of history. Decades from now, when future journalists look back on your stories, or rather Google your stories, make sure they capture the essence of today's shared humanity, both good and bad. So tonight, as we recognize our outstanding achievements, we not only applaud your individual accomplishments, we celebrate the collective impact of journalism in being a force for good that transcends borders. Toyota thanks you for your dedication, your restless curiosity, and the passion you have to be exceptional journalists. Thank you. Now, the fun stuff. I get to introduce scholarship winners and award winners. Our first scholarship winner is Sharice Hassal. Sharice. As a former reporter, producer, and anchor at Channel 7 in Belize, Sharice is an up-and-coming journalist known for international headlines. In her 4-year stint in Belize, Sharice's reporting on pressing issues earned her numerous accolades in journalism. In fact, I recently saw a report she had done, with a video crew. She went into a pitch-black prison van and showed viewers the inhumane conditions where people were being arrested. So really good work. Sharice is now pursuing a master's in journalism with a special project on SmartLink app and Supreme Court immigration rulings. Long term, she is aiming for a spot on a leading news network while she hones her skills as an uncompromising journalist. Sharice, congratulations again on being a scholarship winner. Our next scholarship winner is Maurice Anianjo. Maurice? Is he here? He's not? No. Someone? I wish he were here. It's a very impressive background. Maurice is an investigative multimedia journalist from Nairobi, Kenya, where he covers social justice, human rights, corruption, natural history, and conservation. That's quite a portfolio. His work has been featured in renowned publications such as National Geographic, The Guardian, The Continent, among others. He has also contributed to acclaimed documentary programs such as National Geographic's Ultimate Vipers, Giving Nature a Voice, and Africa Uncensored. His enthusiasm and talent have earned him numerous awards, including the 2021 Development Reporting Award for TV from the Media Council of Kenya. He has also been named the 2015 Environmental Reporter of the Year and the 2014 Thompson Foundation Young Journalist of the Year. He's a National Geographic Explorer and a 2022 Journalism Fellow at Oxford University's Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism. Currently, Maurice is based in New York, where he is pursuing a Master of Science in Journalism at Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism. So I wish he were here so we could all applaud him and so he could see the applause that we'd have. So thank you.
I have a few words from Maurice.
Sure.
I'm deeply honored to accept this award on behalf of my dear colleague, Maurice Onyango, who regrettably couldn't be here tonight due to the passing of his dear father. Maurice's dedication and hard work to bring global stories to light have had a profound impact, and he expresses his heartfelt gratitude for this scholarship opportunity, which will help support him in pursuing his journalistic goals. Thank you.
Now I am pleased to announce our 2023 Professional Excellence Award, which goes to Hiba Nasir. So Hiba joined Shark News in 2020 as a senior correspondent in Washington, D.C., where she covers the White House, State Department, and Pentagon on issues related to foreign policy. As part of the White House press corps, Hiba has covered prominent global events, including President Biden's visit to Ukraine, Tokyo, Brussels, and Geneva, as well as summits with NATO, EU leaders, and the Russian president. She was one of a select few to meet with Secretary of State Blinken last June during his visit to Saudi Arabia. Hiba has covered other major assignments covering the United Nations, General Assembly, 4 U.S. elections from 2016 to 2021, the Singapore Summit, and the G20 in Buenos Aires. Before joining Ozrock News, she worked at Sky News Arabia headquarters in Abu Dhabi. There, she held several positions working as their Washington Bureau Senior Correspondent, Assignment Desk Editor, and Deputy News Editor. Again, please join me in congratulating Hiba on this great award.
Thank you so much. I know we're not supposed to give speeches today, but give me a few minutes from your time. Thank you. Thanks for the association and for the work being done for the journalists coming to work in the US. I have been looking forward to being here since the early days in my career that began in Lebanon in 2004. With each passing day, the goal became clearer, and I wrote it on a small piece of paper in 2010, and it became real in 2017. It has been an unmatched experience on many levels, and this recognition and this award is a reminder of how hard work pays back. I wasn't supposed to be here. I was born in a place and at a time where girls' paths were usually drawn before birth. It is not the right time to go through it now. But I'm saying that to say I have every reason to celebrate this award, but I cannot. As of December 10, 63 journalists from the Middle East have been killed in the last war. 63. We are now in day 66. I would have imagined if this number of journalists had been killed in other areas of this world. Wouldn't this have a different impact, whether on the media coverage or on the decision-making process? As I said in my interview after being notified of the award, I came here to learn how the decisions that impact us are made and shaped. I'm afraid of the last lesson I'm learning on how decisions are made toward specific countries, regions, and populations. And yes, it's a moment to remind every dreamer that it's very rational to dream beyond limits, but it is absolutely an opportunity to remind those who are watching us, to remind you and those who are advocating and had been advocating for a free and responsible press to apply the same standards when it comes to the region I came from, a balanced coverage. I want to thank my company, Shark News, and my colleagues who have been instrumental in my success. And I want to say kudos to all the journalists covering the war in the Middle East, to my friends who are on the borders in Lebanon, to Samir Kassab, who have been kidnapped in Syria, who have disappeared in Syria in 2013. The last thing, and it's very personal, I want to say it in Arabic because I don't want anybody to translate it to my mom who doesn't speak English. صلابة الشموخ من امتداد الجذور. شكراً إلك, شكراً لبي, شكراً وسام, شكراً لولاء. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Edward, and congratulations, Hiba, Charisse, and Maurice. Now it's time to say thank you to General Motors for its multi-year commitment and partnership with the AFPC. We're thankful for GM's generosity. I'm very pleased to have with us tonight George Svigos, the Executive Director of Communications for GM International, who's traveled all the way from Detroit, Michigan. Please join me in welcoming George to present the next award.
Thanks, Cecil. So firstly, I'd like to thank Nancy Prager-Camel for just a wonderful partnership with GM over 3 years, and just a wonderful person to work with and a great advocate for everyone in this room. Nancy, thank you. I'd like to thank Cecil and the board of the AFPC as well, and to Thanos. Where's Thanos? Right, Thanos, amazing work, wonderful to work with you all the time. You're full of energy and passion, and you really make this partnership sing. So thank you for everything you do as well. I did have an incredible speech written for tonight. It was amazing. I was going to go through the past year's major events, what it means in stretches of time over history, the impact of the economy, the rise of nationalism. Then I looked at the people that came before me, and I took Cecil's word from before, and I looked at my speech, and I thought, this looks like ChatGPT. This looks like I've regurgitated everything that came before me. So then I was going to switch gears, and I was going to do some sort of hokey rendition of what it's like to grow up on the other side of the planet, all the way far distant in Australia. And then they wheel out a former UN ambassador from New Zealand. So I tear that speech up entirely. So I have to think on my feet. And what I'm going to do now is I'm presenting 3 awards, or three people awards tonight. And I hope they know that they're getting them from me, because I'm going to give them a warning that I'm actually going to ask you to speak rather than me speak. I'm going to say a little bit about you, but I'm going to ask you 1 or 2 questions as well, because you're journalists, so you should speak, right? That's what you do. So that you can remember what General Motors did tonight, we're going to switch it up a little bit and ask the award recipients to speak, and then hopefully that impacts you next time you go buy a car. You'll remember what General Motors did tonight. So let's get started with the 2023 Scholarship Award winners. The first award I have the honour to present is to someone from Argentina, which is one of the markets I get to cover in my work, which I'm very happy with, and where GM has a strong Chevrolet franchise. Lucia Pinto is an Argentinian journalist and project manager. Lucia, please come forward. Take a photo. Do we take a photo? Photo. Okay, quick. Okay. Thank you. Come up here. Don't stand back there. Okay. So it says here that you're a journalist and project manager. You're currently completing an MA in science journalism at Columbia. Amazing. Parents must be very proud.
They are.
Excellent. And you're a contributor to La Nación, which is good. They need some better journalists, if I'm honest. No, they're good. And you're writing on AI, tech, and science. Now, it says here that you have led the creation of websites, data visualization, video, and platforms for international development organisations. Can you tell everyone a little bit more about these development organisations and the work you did?
Yeah, sure. I'm so prepared for this.
Excellent. Perfect. Think on your feet.
Yeah, I'm not answering the exact question, but I wanted to thank everyone here.
We're going to come to that after. We'll do that after. Tell us about what drew you to these development organisations, and what was the contribution you made?
Yeah, so I believe that there's great opportunity in combining what technology can give us in terms of finding new formats to communicate the complexity of our world, which has been displayed here by all these wonderful speeches. So data visualization is an example of this, and I think that journalism has found a great partner in this kind of technology and communication formats that can improve our possibilities to communicate very complex issues.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And the reason I want you to share is, for me, it's exciting to see someone look at this technology not as a threat, but as an opportunity to create more equality and access for people around the world. I do want to just close out this part about you by saying that you're also a Journalism AI Fellow, and you co-created Image to Text, an open source project which aims to incorporate AI to describe and catalogue photos and videos in newsrooms from the Global South. Now with that, I know you've got some thank yous, so please, who would you like to thank?
Yes, so that project we did with colleagues, amazing colleagues from Paraguay and the Philippines and Argentina as well. And yeah, we were trying to balance some of the biases that we often find in AI, and specifically in the way in which databases are created that train AI models. So we were trying to find solutions to balance that kind of biases, which are very, very prevalent. And so, yeah, I mean, this kind of relates to what I wanted to say, that it's that arriving to this big and amazing city and these big and amazing universities in which we are all pursuing our master's degree can be very intimidating. And so having the recognition and an organization like this recognizing our value and giving us a push is very encouraging and feels great. So I'm very thankful for that.
Sorry to put you on the spot. Congratulations. Our next 2023 Scholarship Award winner is Alexa Robles Gil Luna from Mexico. Alexis, please come forward. So Alexa is a master's student at New York University's Science, Health and Environmental Reporting program. Before becoming a journalist, Alexa worked as a field biologist researching sharks off South Africa's Western Cape and seabirds off Mexico's Pacific coast. Amazing, amazing. And it was in doing this work that you encountered issues that really led you into journalism. Issues like abalone poaching and ocean plastics. Now, I wonder if you can share with everyone in this room, what was the inspirational moment that made you change from being a field biologist to wanting to tell those stories to the rest of the world? Please go ahead.
Okay. I actually, a few months ago, I was a field biologist on a remote island, very different from this usual attire. I was not showering. And, and through that work, I really encountered some issues that you face in conservation as a biologist, and they are very complex issues, such as abalone poaching when I was in South Africa, and that really made me want to explore these stories, meeting all of these characters, knowing all of these sides that are also involved in conservation made me want to find a way to intertwine writing with science and the work that I was doing. And I actually made the decision to pursue my master's and come to New York when I was on the island a few months ago, and it was really like a pivotal moment to kind of expand what I was doing while I was on the island and pursue that.
That's so exciting. Congratulations. That's wonderful. So right now, Alexa aims to uncover issues at the forefront of wildlife conservation with a focus on Latin America. She's contributing to a Chilean magazine, Endemico.
Yes.
Beautiful. On topics from jellyfish to AI and climate change, and has collaborated with National Geographic explorers as well. And just to add to that, as well as being a field biologist, a journalist, you're also a fiction writer.
Yes.
Working on your second novel.
Yes.
So I hope that this scholarship encourages you to keep moving things forward, and congratulations on your achievement.
Thank you.
And finally, from me, I'd like to present the 2023 Professional Excellence Award to Benjamin Piga Tete from Ghana. Benjamin, please come forward. So Benjamin is an award-winning Ghanaian journalist with more than 15 years' experience in broadcast, print and online journalism, with various roles from reporter to producer in newsrooms across Ghana, Senegal and the US. Benjamin, you are what I grew up wanting to be, but I settled for this instead. You are a true investigative journalist, and you played a pivotal role as a board member in Africa's first investigative journalism body, the Forum for African Investigative Reporting, FAIR. And Benjamin, it's about that I'd like to ask you a couple of questions, or at least to share a perspective. What is the one or two pivotal projects or key projects that FAIR is working on that you think are really changing investigative reporting or safeguarding it in Africa? Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Well, unfortunately, FAIR has become a little dormant now. One being a key issue being funding, and then also a couple of other issues that I may not have time to. But this year at the World Press Freedom Day, I was surprised as I was digging to make a presentation at the World Press Freedom Day that the World Press Freedom Day basically was birthed out of the African continent based on the advocacy from African journalists for a global voice. So on the continent, though you may not have the media the size of the CNNs or the ABCs, we have journalists who are doing great work. With little resource, they will go as deep as they can. So through Foreign Correspondents, which was based in Johannesburg, we've been able to fund investigative projects from oil issues, illicit global financial flows, to environmental issues. One of those that I was, before I joined the board, that I received to do was what I call the gold case. Ghana being, of course, previously called the Gold Coast. And yet, gold has continued to be a kind of mirage in terms of the revenues and how we will build our country. And so some of these were some of the works, and a lot more that I cannot shed light on. But it's also important to say this is one of the reasons I am a big supporter of the Foreign Press Correspondents, because collectively, not only do we shape each other, not only do we encourage each other, but we get to also shed light on the situation of journalism in any part of the world.
Thank you, Benjamin. Just to round out, Benjamin's produced award-winning documentaries on mining pollution, climate change, children's rights, and sustainable development goals. He's worked at radio stations in Ghana and contributed to BBC and UN News. Now he's concluding his PhD studies at the Newhouse School of Public Communications at Syracuse University, and focus on media economy, communication law, ethics, and international communications. And he also comes to this with a degree in psychology and a master's in journalism. Benjamin, congratulations on your award.
Thank you.
George, I think you've missed your calling and that we need to recruit you to MC next year. All right, we're going to now move on to say thank you to Volkswagen Group of America for offering its unconditional support to our group and mission. Personal thank you to Cameron Batten, the Chief Communications Officer of Volkswagen Group of America, for being such an advocate and supporter of the foreign press in America. Please join in welcoming Cameron.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. On behalf of the 550,000 employees working for the Volkswagen Group worldwide, we wanted to celebrate and recognize the foreign press community and tonight's honorees. Without you, we could not tell our story in every country we operate. We also recognize you for being the unsung heroes who have to sift through the noise, seeking truth that lies beneath the surface. You are our watchdogs, tirelessly working to hold those in power accountable for their actions. You are champions of transparency, ensuring that the public is informed and empowered to make decisions that shape our collective future. Tonight's award winners and scholars will continue to shine a light on injustice, expose corruption, and amplify the voices of the marginalized. They bring stories from all walks of life, ensuring that every voice is heard, every perspective is considered. It is through these diverse narratives that we build bridges of understanding and break down the barriers that divide us, fostering a greater sense of humanity. So let's get started with our award winners. I'll first start with Anisha Diuta. Anisha, can you join me? Anisha is a New York-based investigative journalist from India with experience spanning 9 years as a leading correspondent, specializing in the intricate interplay between politics and policy. Her recent stories have been published in The Guardian, Al Jazeera, Indian Express, Hindustan Times, Economic Times, and The Print. With a steadfast commitment to uncovering the truth, Anisha has made significant contributions to journalism by meticulously documenting the rise of authoritarianism in South Asia, closely tracking far-right Hindu nationalism, national Indian politics, foreign policy, and international conflicts. Anisha enrolled in Columbia University's master's program for political journalism, where she deepened her expertise in political writing and analytical reporting. Prior to her studies at Columbia, Anisha served as an assistant editor at the Indian Express, one of India's leading English dailies. During her tenure as special correspondent in the National Political Bureau of Hindustan Times, Anisha contributed significantly to the field by breaking essential stories, including her expose on India's handling of the COVID-19 crisis. Please join me in congratulating Anisha. I'd like to next recognize Anthony Esguerra from the Philippines. Anthony? Anthony is a Filipino multimedia journalist and an aspiring journalism innovator. He is the founder and executive editor of Factual, an independent nonprofit newsroom that started as Fact Check Chatbot during the pandemic. And I can tell you, as someone who works with journalists every day, we need a lot more fact-checking. Anthony currently attends New York University, where he's taken an MA in journalism program that focuses on journalism innovation, audience, and news products. He was most recently a Southeast Asia reporter for Vice and Vice World News, where he produced investigative and in-depth reporting on the intersection of health and politics. He is also a stringer for the Voice of America, reporting on text, TV, and radio platforms as a broadcast journalist for Philippines' largest broadcaster, GMA Network. Anthony sought to address disinformation by providing in-depth and timely reports for Filipino millennials on the award-winning Stand for Truth newscast. He has worked as a reporter for Inquirer.net, the online platform of the Philippine Daily Inquirer. In 2018, he was a Hereford Youth Fellow of the National Endowment for Democracy in Washington, D.C., where he explores strategies to combat disinformation. He is an alumnus of the Asia Young Leaders for Democracy program at Taiwan Foundation for Democracy. Please join me in congratulating Anthony. Okay, and now we will move on to our Professional Excellence Award to Frank Joseph Uciardo from Italy. Frank is an Emmy award-winning television journalist working at the UN's correspondent for TRT World International News Channel. Mr. Uciardo previously covered the UN for CBS, as well as reporting breaking news from Europe and Asia. He also served as a correspondent for NBC and CNN and was the evening anchor for the HD News Channel. His investigative reporting received the Society of the Silurians Gold Medal for a series of reports that forced the Department of Energy to shut down a nuclear reactor leaking radioactive waste into drinking water. He also covered the terrorist attacks on 9/11 and the crash of the TWA Flight 800. His UN and overseas reporting has received awards from the Society of Professional Journalists, the UN Correspondents Association Broadcast Journalism Medal, and the New York Festival's Award for International Reporting. In his pro bono work, he serves as a judge at the Dart Center for Journalism and Trauma and as a two-term president of the Society of Professional Journalists and a board member of the Deadline Club of New York. He graduated from honors from the New York Institute of Technology with a master's degree and a BFA. Please join me in congratulating Frank.
I know we're not supposed to take up some time, but I wanted to give a shout out. This is really a team award for the TRT World team. back in London, in Istanbul, Omer, Bora, Enes Aldi, our new U.S. Bureau Chief, is here with us tonight from Washington. Thank you for coming. I want to just give a shout out to Jer Van Dyke, my former colleague, a truly great journalist from our CBS years, who was held by the Taliban for over 6 weeks. He walked the walk, talked the talk, terrific guy. An honor to be before all of you. Thank you so much.
All right, a big thank you to Cameron and Volkswagen Group of America, and congratulations to Frank, Anisha, and Anthony for their outstanding achievements. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that we officially announce this year's recipient of the Honorary Foreign Press Award. Throughout his entire career, Fareed Zakaria has been a beacon of excellence, emphasizing fact-checking and ethical reporting. He has devoted his career to educating his audience by providing insightful interpretations of global events that include important context and historical perspective. And I couldn't agree more, Fareed, with what you said about universities being a forum to exchange ideas, even ideas we don't agree with. Fareed is the host of Fareed Zakaria GPS on CNN, a columnist for The Washington Post, a best-selling author. His weekly program is a domestic and international affairs program that since its debut in 2008 has featured interviews with Barack Obama, Emmanuel Macron, Narendra Modi, Vladimir Putin, Benjamin Netanyahu, Condoleezza Rice, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and the Dalai Lama, to name just a few. Fareed's Global Briefing, a daily digital newsletter, is one of the most widely read CNN newsletters around the world. His column for The Washington Post remains one of the longest running for that newspaper. And he's also the author of 4 highly regarded New York Times bestselling books, with his latest being The 10 Lessons for a Post-Pandemic World, on how the pandemic reshaped our society. So on behalf of the AFPC-USA, it's with great pleasure that I congratulate the 2023 Honorary Foreign Press Awardee, Fareed Zakaria. And please join me in welcoming Nancy to give Fareed the award.
It's a huge honor to be here, and I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be receiving this from the Foreign Press Journalists Association. It's a rare opportunity to thank so many people who try to help the world understand what is going on. I feel as though we are living in a time, this has been mentioned by many, many people, when the freedom of the press is in bad shape. And it's in bad shape for all kinds of complicated reasons. We can, I think Thanos and I are going to have a conversation after this, and I hope we can talk about that some more. But what I want to say is, at a time like that, it takes greater courage to just do the daily task of journalism. It's not just the heroism. It's not just the part about being in a war zone and enduring, a missile fire and bullets, being captured. All those things are extraordinary. And, having never reported from a war zone myself, I'm in awe of reporters who can do that. But what's striking to me is how the daily act of journalism has become something that requires a certain amount of courage, because you're going to be attacked. You might be attacked by your government. You might be attacked by very popular figures within the country. Those attacks might then lead to threats of violence against you. That kind of intimidation that is taking place almost every day is become something quite extraordinary. I give you an example I just read about in the last day or two. Somebody I know well, Robert Kagan, a columnist for the Washington Post, wrote a piece speculating on what might happen if Donald Trump were to refuse to abide by the results of the next election. In effect, try to seize power through the kind of judicial coup that, frankly, he attempted the last time around. And this writer, Kagan, argued, well, maybe the state governments need to resist that effort to engage in a kind of constitutional coup. Well, Senator J.D. Vance has announced that he is opening a federal investigation into treason against Robert Kagan. It's not entirely clear whether he can do that as a senator, but he has essentially asked the Department of Justice to show cause why this would not constitute treason and why they wouldn't engage in an investigation. Robert Kagan is now, having to hire security to protect himself and his family and his wife and his kids. And this is for writing an op-ed, right? This is not going into Afghanistan and into Taliban territory. It's not something you normally think of as requiring that you factor in, a budget for personal security when you write it. And that's the new danger, in a sense, to journalism, which is, I think, much more profound than the other ones, because the other ones we know about, and in some ways, we honor greatly and deeply the people who do it. We understand what it might take to protect against it. And generally speaking, you often find people united in trying to help journalists do their job in those situations. But what do you do when somebody who writes an op-ed, because it's something that a powerful senator disagrees with, is now facing that death threats, now faces the circumstance where he has to worry about his own personal security? That's the new danger to freedom of the press. And it's not just a danger in the United States. It's a danger in India. It's a danger in Turkey. It's a danger in the Philippines. It's a danger in so many places that one always thought of as established democracies. India is a good example. That's a country I grew up in. One of the great prides and joy of India was that despite the fact that it was a very poor country, it had been able to maintain a remarkably robust democracy. It, in fact, was sort of one of the great anomalies when political scientists studied democracy, that generally speaking, democracy was correlated with high income, high per capita GDP. But India was one of these great exceptions. And what was particularly exceptional in India was the freedom of press. Even when you had governments that were quite, how would one put it, were proto-authoritarian in some senses, Indira Gandhi's government in the 1970s, there was still a very robust free press that would take issue, that would argue against. And that, by the way, then gave strength to the other independent elements within society, like courts, like independent bureaucracies, because they each, in a sense, supported the other. And what you've been seeing in a place like India is the unraveling of that nexus. So the press becomes weaker, the judges become less independent, the bureaucrats become less willing to stand up to highly politicized directives, and the whole quality of democracy decays and erodes. And one piece of all this that remains within our power is the press and freedom of the press. We can't do a lot about judges who become too compliant. We can't do much about bureaucrats who cave. But the one area where we can shore things up, where we can try to make a difference, is press freedom, press independence, honoring journalists who do their jobs, honoring particularly ones who do their jobs in difficult and brave circumstances. And so listening to the stories of all the people here, I really feel as though this is much more about those people who are being honored. I'm delighted to be able to share in all this and to bask in their reflected glory, but the focus and the spotlight should be on all of you, frankly, everybody other than me who's been honored today, because you are, in your own way, the building blocks of this effort to shore up democracy. And it often seems like it's going very badly, but then things do turn. In India, when I was growing up, there was a period called the emergency, 18 months of martial law, essentially, when journalists were jailed. But things come back. the pendulum does swing, and you have the ability to move things for the better, to change the narrative, and it will change, because at the end of the day, I do think when you look at these societies all over the world, what you see is a much greater awareness in the public, a much greater empowerment of the public. And sometimes that leads to a certain kind of ugly majoritarianism, the kind we're seeing in the United States sometimes, in Turkey, in India, in the Philippines, where, when Duterte would jail journalists in the Philippines, it was often very popular because he would portray them as troublemakers. But the pendulum does swing, and over time, more and more people are getting educated, more and more people want to live in open, free societies. The pendulum will swing back. I'm confident of this because at the end of the day, nobody really wants to live without their freedom. Desmond Tutu once said, "To be human is to be free." And I do believe that at the end of the day, there is a kind of elemental yearning that people have for that kind of freedom. And you are all helping make that kind of freedom possible day to day, doing the kinds of things you do. Journalists don't get paid like bankers. They don't get some of the kind of rewards that other professions have. But I've always thought that journalists have two great things going for them. The first is you really are doing something deeply important. You are engaged in the great issues of the day, the great struggles of the day, and you are pushing that moral arc of the universe, bending it toward justice. The second is it's a hell of a lot of fun. It's a profession where you are actually getting paid to do a lot of things that you would ordinarily do anyway. I remember when I was a young journalist, for the first time getting into a business class cabin. I was invited to some conference, and everybody else in the cabin opens their laptops and takes out, pulls up their Excel spreadsheets. And I had a copy of Foreign Affairs and The Economist and, a couple of other things. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm doing my work, they're doing theirs. But the dirty little secret is I'd be reading the stuff even if nobody was paying me to do it. So with that, thank you again very much. I want to end with just one thought, which is television journalism in particular really is an extraordinary team enterprise. And the person in front of the camera does get too much credit for it. I'm not, I don't lie awake at nights worrying about this inequity, but I do want to thank everybody on my team, many of whom are here. I see Tom Goldstone, my executive producer. I see Jonah Bader. I see Claire. I see Nida, Jessica, Tommy, Chris, who produces that great newsletter that everyone talked about, Emily Welch, who books everybody so that we actually have a show. And if I've forgotten anybody, I'm terribly sorry. But I do really want to say it's very hard to do the kind of television we do. We work very hard at it. We try to get it right. We are scrupulous about trying to be not just balanced, but intelligent, and make sure that we have our facts right. And to do all that, I've been very blessed to have a great team. Thank you all very much. I'm so sorry. This is so beautiful.
This is our 2023 winner, and I think nobody would question why. So I turn it over now to Thanos to have a conversation, and we thank you all for your patience and for your wonderful audience. Thank you.
It's really beautiful. I'm assuming it's designed expressly for us by some...
It's a Kikladi card. You don't question why it's a selection of a Kikladi card. Thank you for your remarks. I was expecting to question some of the content of your remarks, but I think that you already covered some of them. I would like to focus on the awardees that we have here tonight. And many of them, I know that they would love to work with your teams, to work with you, because I know that for many of them, for the majority, the vast majority of all of us who've been in journalism, we think that you are an icon in journalism field. What would be your advice? If someone would like to be interviewed for a job, what would you say, what would you expect them to answer in your questions? And what would you ask them also?
I would tell you your best chance is at the cocktails afterwards. Get to know Jessica Guttridge and Tom Goldstone very well. In fact, we get asked, I can't tell you how many times I get asked about internships, and I get asked by all kinds of very fancy people, and I always give them the same answer, which is that Jessica runs the program, I do not interfere with it, and it would not be any fun for her to have a program that I said, you get to run the internship program, but by the way, here's this year's interns, and here's the next semester's interns. So that's the facetious answer. The question I would ask more than anything else is, how can you add value? News has become a commodity. Telling people what happened, I honestly don't think most news organizations have really gotten this memo, honestly, including my own. Everybody already knows what's happened. They know it because it's on their phone. What you have in your pocket now is a supercomputer that tells you when something happens instantly. What people are going to tune in or look at a website or read something for that they will remember is when you can add value to that, when you can in some way deepen, broaden, widen their understanding of it. If all you're telling them, it is a kind of fundamental inversion of the old principles of journalism, the what, who, why, when, where. Really what we are left with is the why. There is a what, who, when, where, but it's become commoditized, and believe me, with AI, it's going to get really commoditized because it will be very easy to glean that information without even having a human being involved. And so, in a way, it's a wonderful opportunity because it's forcing you to up your game, to ask yourself, what can I add here? Do I know something about this country? Do I know something about the culture? Do I know the language? Do I know the background of civil wars? Do I know something about hostage taking? Can I learn it? Can I figure out how to understand this quickly? And all that is much more fun than just quickly regurgitating what everybody else is doing, which is telling you, the bank got robbed yesterday by 3 armed robbers, and we don't know their identities. So that's the challenge. And as I say, I don't think CNN has answered it properly, but I should be fair. Nobody has. And I don't mean that really as a criticism of CNN. I mean it is, we haven't figured out what to do when people turn to us. They turn to us out of habit. And so we often reflexively give them what we think that we should be giving them because we are news organizations, but they kind of already know the news. They saw it on their phone before they turned on the TV.
If someone would ask you what is your major concern about the future of journalism, would you respond that it is the artificial intelligence? Do you think that the AI can be a threat or a tool, especially in the landscape of the next 10, 15 years for journalists?
Yeah, I don't think AI is a huge problem because of exactly what I said. And I think it won't be able to provide the kind of highly distinctive and curated and creative answers you want to give it. I give you an example, and this may be current, and so this may not be as useful as it could be, but I was trying to write a book. I don't remember, Jonah will probably remember because he pointed out to me that these were wrong. I asked ChatGPT to give me a statement, a quote of a politician in the 1930s who opposed the programs of Eleanor Roosevelt. And it said, okay, here's Senator Thomas Beebe of Missouri, and here's the quote. And I put it into whatever I was writing. I think it was a book, right, Jonah? And then I send it to Jonah, who looks at everything of mine, and he sends me a note saying, There is no such quote. And I said, no, you must have mistaken. There must be in some congressional record. And when Jonah tells me it's not there, I know it's not there. So what I realized was ChatGPT had literally manufactured a quote, because you've got to understand it's a language prediction model. It is trying to use all the sources, and it takes your prompt and says, what would an opponent of Eleanor Roosevelt, the guy was a real guy, a real Southern senator who hated Eleanor Roosevelt, what would he probably have said? And it was a fairly accurate kind of speculation as to what this guy would have said, but it was made up, right? So that tells you that there are certain kind of inherent flaws. The second one I give you, I asked, I've been trying to figure out for the commentary for last Sunday and for a couple of Sundays ago on these universities, whether or not universities actually made institutional statements about 9/11 or the Iraq War. So, as among the many things, Claire actually did the actual research for it. I was fooling around on ChatGPT, and I asked, did universities denounce, did they come out institutionally? Basically, the best I can tell, the answer is no. All these institutionalized statements start after George Floyd. Before that, there was an understanding that the university did not have to take a position on these things. So ChatGPT says to me, oh yeah, lots of universities did that. I said, okay, can you give me specific examples and statements that universities took? And it says, no, I can't, because I can't go inside the university website. That's all, those are what are they called? There's a lock on them. There's a kind of, there's a wall. There's a wall that allows me, no, it doesn't allow me to go in. So I'm like, so what are you basing this on? So it's sort of a generalized, So then I tried to do a third thing, which is to ask it about a book I've been reading. And I asked, tell me about the book. And it gives me a pretty generic 10th grade summary of the book, 4 paragraphs. And I say, no. I want to know really what the book is, and particularly these 4 areas. And it says, well, I can't tell you that because I don't have access to the book. So I said, okay, what are you basing this? I'm basing this on the reviews and publicity material of the book that is not behind a paywall. So you see what I'm saying? So there's a very kind of shallow, these are not information retrieval models. They are language prediction models. And until you can combine language prediction with information retrieval, I think you're going to be, you're still going to be in a very, in a situation where what's coming out is suboptimal. There are some things it does very well, where the information is all public, and it's a bit of a game. So you say, write a poem for me in the style of Edgar Allan Poe's Raven, and have it be about, my staff at GPS, and here are their names, and here are their characteristics. It does that brilliantly, right? But that's like a parlor game. That's not actually something you would use. So there are real limitations to it. Now, maybe these will all be overcome over time, but I actually doubt it because of this problem of it not being an information retrieval model. It's a language prediction model. Maybe they'll come up with a new one. So no, I actually think, if I can go on for a second, the real challenge to journalism today is this populist revolt against journalism. And journalists have found themselves on the wrong side of this because journalism has gone from being a working class profession to a professional, white-collar, upper-middle-class profession. And so we are largely alienated from the people who feel this deep sense of anger and outrage about the world, the way it's changing. If you think about all these people who are voting for populists all over the world, generally speaking, they are more rural, they are less educated, they tend to be more traditional, more religious everywhere. Whether you're looking at Turkey, whether you're looking at India. And journalists really come from exactly the opposite background. It wasn't always the truth. My first boss, Jim Hogue at Foreign Affairs, used to run the Chicago Sun-Times. That was his big job in journalism. When he joined the Chicago Sun-Times as a reporter in the early 1960s or late 1950s, he went to Yale. He said not only was he the only guy in the newsroom who had gone to Yale, he was the only guy who had gone to the Ivy Leagues and one of 7 who had gone to college.
journalism in those days was a working class profession, you know, and if you ever have any doubts, if you ever gone out with real old style journalists, the way they could drink was a sign of a very different kind of like ethos of the way they enjoyed life. That transformation has left journalists in a kind of an odd position where they are seen as part of the kind of problem, you know, and whether it's Trump, whether it's Bolsonaro, whether it's Modi, whether it's Duterte, whether it's Erdogan, they can turn the cameras on the journalists and say, you're part of the problem. And that is something journalism hasn't figured out what to do about. I mean, I think we need to get much deeper into these communities and report much better on them, because the reality is we don't come from those worlds. And that's a lot of people and a lot of anger in the world right now.
You mentioned before, and I think I've heard it in one of your recent commentaries, that the public universities, the universities and private universities in America were pushed to have a position about, for example, what happened in Middle East, and your position was that this opened the Pandora's box. If we bring this argument to journalism, do you think that journalists have been pushed to take positions in general, in several crises, in several events that are affecting the public? And do you think that taking a position as a journalist sacrifices the objectivity that the journalists need to have? Do you think that positioning yourself as a journalist is a must or can be a sacrifice of your objectivity?
I think there are many kinds of journalism, and I think that it would be a mistake to hold, you know, objectivity as some kind of holy grail that is the only way that one can be a journalist. So, for example, in Europe, the long tradition of journalism has always been much more spirited, partisan, and polemical. So, if you live in a European city, you know, and you got Figaro and your neighbor got, you know, a Libération, you knew you were getting two very different kinds of news, you know? I mean, that was understood. If you got The Guardian in London and somebody else got the Daily Telegraph, you knew. Now, there would be a hope that good journalism wouldn't be factually inaccurate, but the stories they picked, the emphasis they gave, would be colored by the political lens you were looking at it through. I think that the challenge for journalism is always, don't say anything that's outright false. Don't place yourself in a position where you are ever essentially constructing a kind of polemical argument rather than one that's analytic and intellectual. Don't ignore facts that don't make your case. But I think it's always been true that journalism has had an element of opinion and analysis in it. Now, it is true that the greatest reporters have often been the ones who can go somewhere and just point to a certain kind of truth that is so compelling that it almost everyone on all sides sees the value in that. And I think there are people like that. Some of the best New York Times reporters and New Yorker reporters have that ability. You know, a Sebastian Thrun or somebody like that. Sebastian, I'm thinking about the guy who wrote the book about. Sebastian was a Junger. You know, people like that. They have that force, and they're often very non-political because they're looking at something at a kind of human dimension. And there's a real power to that. But the greatest journalists, you know, George Orwell was often very polemical. I mean, he was reporting on one side of the Spanish Civil War, but he comes back disenchanted with his side. And so there's a kind of truth to that. I think that's very different from universities, you know, because universities are really meant to be places that are hothouses where everybody else can take lots of positions and should take them freely and fearlessly. And it just becomes hard for people to be able to have free exchanges of information if the university itself is putting its thumb on one side of the scale, right? Saying, you can all have whatever opinions you think, but by the way, we think that virtue and good is on this side of the earth. That makes it very hard to allow people to have real spirited exchange.
And before we conclude, and we thank you very much for your presence here, I would like to ask you a personal question of what would be the most crucial moment of your career that you think affected who you are right now, affected your future, your present, and your success?
Oh, gosh.
I just thought about that. I would like to ask you many years ago, so now I have the opportunity, so I don't want to miss it.
I mean, in general, you learn more from failure than success because that's a time at which you're vulnerable. And there was a point at which I was accused of plagiarism, and that probably forced me to kind of, you know, look within myself and be vulnerable and recognize that, you know, things may go in a very different way than I had thought my life would go. And I think it's all, you know, I mean, obviously I did not think this at the time, but in many ways I think it was a very good moment for me personally and professionally because it made me focus on the things I really cared about. It made me think about what I had done wrong, what I could do better. But I think probably in the sense you mean it, it was probably the moment, I can tell you exactly, I was getting a PhD at Harvard, and I was going to become a professor. And my professor, my advisor, Sam Huntington, had offered me a job at Harvard. He said, you know, I will construct a job for you, which you'll partly help me run my center and partly teach. And I was having lunch at the time with a guy who I had gotten to know, who was a senior editor of Time magazine in New York, by the name of Walter Isaacson. And Walter, at that time, had written one or two books. He had written The Wise Men, and he had written one more, I think. And he says to me, there's this great job for you, Fareed, that you should think about. The managing editorship of Foreign Affairs is opened up for you, and you should think about it. You're a little young for it. I was 27 at the time. But, you know, I think you could make a plausible case for yourself. And I remember telling him, no thanks, Walter. I'm really happy to tell you Sam Huntington has offered me a job at Harvard as an assistant professor. And he looked at me and he said, I'm talking about the managing editor of Foreign Affairs. And I said to him, and Walter, I'm talking about an assistant professor at Harvard University. And I realized, you know, you get socialized in life. I was on this train called graduate school, and you're going along, and you think that the point of going to graduate school is to become a professor. And if you're lucky and you know, reasonably talented, the ultimate point would be to be a professor at a place like Harvard, right? So I had completely absorbed that idea. And then I went back home, and I thought to myself, you know, when I started grad school, I actually didn't want to become an academic. The reason I got a PhD was I knew I wanted to stay in America. Every foreigner in this room will understand this. I wanted to stay in America, and the longest student visa you can get is for a PhD program. And it's also the only one where you get aid, you get scholarships. Like if you go to law school or business school, they're not going to give you a scholarship. They're going to be like, go get a summer job. And which, by the way, is one of the great inequities of life, if I can go on a tangent. What people don't realize, but you don't have the money for the summer job from the summer job before you start, whereas you have to pay the tuition beforehand. I tried for a while to figure out whether I could make law school work. Luckily, it didn't work out because I would have hated it. But I go back and I think to myself, I didn't want to be a professor. I wasn't sort of sure what I wanted to do. And if I look back on my life, you know, I started a magazine when I was in high school. When I was at Yale, I was the editor of a political magazine called the Yale Political Monthly, and I wrote it occasionally for the Daily News. When I was in grad school, I'd worked in summer for the Wall Street Journal. I had worked for Harper's. I'd worked for the New Republic. Like literally every job I'd ever had was a journalism job. And I remember thinking to myself about this phrase that economists use called revealed preferences, meaning don't listen to what you say, watch what you do in life. And ask yourself, in your doing, are you revealing something very important about yourself? And in that moment, I realized, you know, I want to be a journalist. I had never thought to myself that I wanted to be a journalist. But I realized, like my whole life, I had been in my actions saying that I wanted to be a journalist. So I threw my hat into the ring. And then I discovered that it was like a very long shot because I was 27 at the time, and every other person being considered was 45 plus. And I had to, I had to convince the editor in chief somehow that I was somebody to take seriously. So I told him, well, the big thing that's different about me is Foreign Affairs is really a terrible magazine right now, and I will help you make it really good, which I thought was like a Hail Mary pass. And he said to me, well, what do you mean? I said, well, why don't I just, instead of telling you, why don't I take the last issue and re-edit the entire magazine and show you what I mean. I'll take every 8,000 word article and make it 5,000 words. I'll kill the ones that are crap, and I'll give you memos on who should have written the article on the same subject. And he was like, okay. Really stupid idea because it took me way longer than I thought. I think I spent, 3 weeks pulling all-nighters and sent it to him finally at FedEx. I remember this vividly. And I sent it to him, and he gets it, and he calls me up that afternoon, and he said, I just went through the entire thing. You have the job. So sometimes you get lucky. But I do want to emphasize, still think about the element of enormous, just sheer dumb luck. I happened to be having lunch with Walter Isaacson. It came up in his mind. He happened to know this guy. I mean, if I had not been in New York that week, I would not have. I just think about that when you think about like really pivotal. And to me, that's always meant in life, and maybe this is also growing up in India, just be nice to everyone because, guess what? The guy who's driving the cab, if he had 2 lucky breaks, he might be in a very different place, and so would you.
I know we are off time. One very last question. Do you believe in luck? Do you believe in decisions, wise decisions? And who has affected most of your decisions in your life? Is it a person of your family, like your mother who passed away a few years ago? Is it a person of your children? And even in the past, at the beginning of your career, who was the person that was having more impact on your decision making?
I think you're always in the way in which I do think, look, luck plays a huge part in your life. What you do with it, obviously, is, when you get a break, what do you do with it? And the way I think about it sometimes is, you look at these Hollywood stars, nothing could be more serendipitous than a movie star's success. But then you have the movie star who takes that initial success and is able to construct an extraordinary, lengthy career out of it by wisely choosing the next movie and making sure that he or she is running owns the production company. So there are lots of people who've had as many successful movies as Tom Hanks. Not many of them are billionaires who run huge production companies and have been able to continue to do, work for 40 or 50 years. There are many people who've had initial movies as successful as Steven Spielberg, but not many of them have been able to construct a kind of career out of that luck. So that's where I think your decisions make a difference. I don't have a very profound answer for you. I'll be honest with you, it's not really anybody else. I mean, those I've always done mostly by intuition. I've usually had a sort of vague sense of where I wanted to go and had a feeling for how I wanted to move things. So, I remember when I was at Foreign Affairs deciding if I'm going to do journalism, I should probably do it. The real point of journalism is to educate the public. I had a feeling that I was engaging too much in a kind of parlor game among elites. I worked at Foreign Affairs. I was writing for the New York Times op-ed page and the New Yorker and the New Republic, and I felt like this is all preaching to the choir. I need to get out there, and so I wanted to find a bigger outlet, and I managed to find Newsweek, and there was a serendipity there again. The editors liked my stuff. Then I thought to myself, yeah, but if you really want to have an impact, you need to go to television. And so I started trying to think about television. So, I've always been thinking in those terms where maybe it's a restlessness, where I'm trying to find the place where you can have an impact. But I do think you have to have a kind of strategic orientation. You know, you can't just be allowing yourself to react every day. You know, it's one of the worst things about email is you can spend the whole day working and you've never done anything you wanted to do. All you've done is answered everybody else's queries and emails, you know. So it's a metaphor in a way for asking, you know, if you can, instead of that, just stop replying to the emails and ask yourself, what was I planning to do today? And in a way, that's a way of almost thinking about your life. You know, because otherwise, you know, you could, I sometimes think about, you know, somebody could write a great novel about this guy who ends his life and all he's done is replied to other people's emails. And he's never asked himself, well, what was I going to do in this life before I started getting emails? That's sometimes how I feel.
We thank you very much. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Thanos for this beautiful evening he's organized. And for his support 365 days a year for our members and mission. He's really amazing. So thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the 2023 Foreign Press Awards, but the party is just starting. So I'll see you in the adjoining room, and thank you everyone for coming tonight.